Hello YouTube land. This is the Comic Book Ninja back with another comic book video, and I want to showcase some of the comics that I picked up in the last year and a half. And I didn't pick up a lot over the last year, but I'm going to do a couple of videos of everything that I picked up over the last year and a half. So the first one you see here is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #6, featuring a classic Jim Steranko cover. When I met Jim Steranko, he said this cover, for this cover he was inspired by Wally Wood, and it truly shows. It's one of my favorite by him. Next we have Monstrous #1. Really interesting comic. This comic is it's pretty popular right now. I think it's been optioned for a movie or TV series. But I happened to find it at one of my favorite comic shops, along with #2. For a total of only $4. They sold it as a set for $4, so I really scored there. It's a pretty interesting series with fantastic artwork. Next we have Jonah Hex #8 from his first series, and #8 features an origin story of how Jonah Hex got his face messed up. They later changed it in a future comic book of how he got his face changed. But this is the original version of how he got his horrible scar. Next we have what I think is an underrated book, Amazing Spider-Man 31. This is a low-grade copy, but still pretty nice. It's about a 2.5 to 3, and it features the first appearance of Gwen Stacy and Harry Osborn. Another underrated book, Amazing Spider-Man 134. I also happen to think it's undervalued. It's not only the first appearance of the tarantula, but it is also the second appearance of the Punisher after after his first appearance in Spider-Man 129. It's a cameo appearance. They consider 135 his second full appearance, but this is his first true second appearance, and he features prominently in the splash page in the last page of this issue. And this book is also significant in that it also has Harry Osborn discovering Peter Parker's identity as Spider-Man. So there's three things going for this book, and I think it's overlooked and undervalued. Next we have Amazing Spider-Man 139. First appearance of the Grizzly. Charlie Chan #1 from Dell. This is from the 1960s series, and this is probably his second or third series, probably his last series. DC did a Charlie Chan series, and I forgot who else did a. I think maybe Quality Comics did a series on Charlie Chan. This is the Dell series. Next we have an interesting curiosity. This is called The Avenging Mind, and it is by Steve Ditko. It's not really a comic, but it's like a pamphlet. It was published by Steve Ditko, the late Steve Ditko, in 2007, and it's basically it's about his philosophy of things. So it's really interesting. I didn't really go through it in detail, but I found it at one of my favorite comic stores for a very low price, and I thought, why not? That's The Avenging Mind by Steve Ditko. Next we have high-grade copy of Defenders 101. Nothing significant, not a key. I just love the Silver Surfer and this nice, really high-grade copy. It's a beautiful cover. I believe it's from Al Milgrom. Thor 301. It's the last part of the Eternals storyline. Really good story. As you see, I purchased this one from Metropolis Comics. It's a really good read. Then we have Thor 300, which is which was part of the Eternal saga. Again, a really good story. I wanted to get the first part of the story. Very good. Now we have Marvel Superheroes number 14. I would say this is an interesting comic in that it is the first solo Spider-Man comic outside of his own. His first solo, not only his first, it's his first solo story published outside of his own series and outside of Amazing Fantasy 15. And it was written by Stan Lee and drawn by Ross Andru. And I think it was the only new Spider-Man story published in Marvel Superheroes. Anything after that in this series were reprints or something like that. But this is the only brand new solo story of Spider-Man outside in this series and outside any other comic at that time, Marvel comic, outside of his own series. Next we have Conan 21, great Barry Windsor Smith cover. ROM number 75, the last issue of ROM. Now we have Marvel Super Special number 22, featuring adaptation of Blade Runner. And this one happens to have a Jim Steranko cover, and I had it signed by Jim Steranko recently. Very nice man. Always willing to talk to you. Really nice. Really, I'm a big fan of Jim Steranko. Now we have Marvel Super Special number 25, featuring an adaptation of the hard to find and underrated animated film Rock and Roll. I'm frankly surprised that Marvel even did an adaptation of this obscure movie. Now we have also Spider-Man 161. It's got a Punisher appearance and Nightcrawler from the X-Men. Here's a nice one that I really like. It's Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 9. It's a really cool cover. It reprints the story from Amazing Spider-Man magazine that came out before, but it adds, I think, 15 more pages to the story. So that's interesting. This comic's also really hard to find and high grade. It's one of the harder Amazing Spider-Man annuals out there to find, especially in high grade. Now we have Dr. Fu Manchu. This is an IW comic. It's a totally un-PC character today, but I like it for its novelty and, you know, for the history. And it's a reprint of a comic called The Mask of Dr. Fu Manchu, and it features art by Wally Wood. Oh, by the way, Fu Manchu is also, he was originally also the father of Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. It's going to come out in a Marvel movie in the future, and this character that Marvel no longer has the rights to is now being replaced by the Mandarin, which is a ripoff of Dr. Fu Manchu in the beginning. Next we have Savage Dragon number 1, and had it signed by Eric Larson. Right there. We also have Amazing Spider-Man 327, also signed by Eric Larson down there. We have a silly Silver Age comic, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen number 88. And to show you how silly DC was in the 1960s, this is one great example of Superman doing a dumb dance. Bouncier than the Beatles, more electrifying than Elvis, see Superman strut the Krypton crawl. And you wonder why the 60s was the Marvel age of comics. Now we have four-star Battle Tales with a nice gray tone cover. I love gray tone covers. From Beyond the Unknown number 25, The Man Who Sold the Earth. You get Fantastic Four 168. That's when Luke Cage, Power Man, joins the team. Ghosts number 83. Dark Horse Presents number 1. This is not only the first appearance of Black Cross, this is also the very first appearance of Concrete, and it is also the very first Dark Horse comic ever published. overlooked comic, in my opinion. Finally, we have Dark Horse Presents number 10, which features first appearance of the Mask. This Mask is a lot different than the one we know now. So there you have it. This is the first video in a series of all my pickups from the last year and a half. This is the Comic Book Ninja signing off.